Alright guys, what up? This is Mr. Shawkar here, and I got a sick kid at home, so I can't be there to teach tomorrow. So I came in. It is now 10:08 at night, and I'm here in my classroom, and I'm going to be go over this lesson with you for tomorrow. Not a hard one. It's rounding and some estimating. So this is stuff that I know you guys have done before, but it's just kind of a reminder because you were back from summer, we're back from like some break and stuff like that, and so people forget like everything. So I'm just kind of reminding you real quick, and then complexity will be built after this lesson. So this is more of just like a kind of a refresher, basically what we're looking at. So first of all, we're going to be talking about rounding and rounding to the nearest 10. So I got some numbers here, 29, 43, 81, 249, and 1,353. Okay, so check it out. One of the things that you do with rounding is you consider, especially if I'm rounding to the nearest 10, you're like, hey, what is the tens place higher and what is the tens place lower? So the tens place higher than 29 is 30. That's the next 10. And the tens place lower than 29 is 20. And I'm like, hey, for 29, is 29 closer to 30 or is it closer to 20? Well, in this case, it's only 1 away from 30, but it's 9 away from 20. So because of that, we see that it is closer to 30, and 29 would round to 30. Now, some of you may have memorized some rules. Now we take a look at the number if we're looking at tens, we take a look at the number in the tens place. And the number that happens to be in the tens place here is a 2. And then we're like, hey, what's the number behind it? And we say, oh, that number is a 9. And that number is the magic number. Not so much 9, but the number behind the one we're looking at. So this is my number in my tens place. This is a 2. And then I had a number behind it, which was a 9. And in this case, some of you have memorized this, that if this number is 5 or more, you let it soar. In other words, it goes up. It'll push this number up to the next 10. But if it's 4 or less, you let it rest, which kind of means like if it's 4, 3, 2, or 1, it's closer to the 10 below, which in this case is 20. Let's apply that over here. In this next number, we have 43. So the numbers that, the 10 above 43 would be like 43, 44, 45, 46, 47. Oh, it's 50. And so we'd have 50. And the tens place below 43 would be like 42, 41, 40. Oh, 40. So I say, hey, 43 is closer to which one of those? Is 43 closer to 50 or is 43 closer to 40? Well, it's only 3 away from 40, whereas it's 7 away from 50. So I'm going to have to go with this guy here as being my answer, 40. But we could actually take it back to that previous rule that I told you about, is that 3 is less than 5, so it goes down. It rounds the 40 down to just straight up 40, no 43, just straight up 40. Cool. Let's take another one. I'm looking at 81. 81 in this case, we're saying the 10 above would be 90, and the 10 below would be 80. Well, this one is much closer, as we see, to 80, because there's only 1 away here, 9 away here. That being the case, it's going to round to 80, and 80 is going to be my answer. That's what I'm going to round to. But we also know that it is below 5, so it's going to round down. Here we have the number 249. Oh! So with 249, the issue there is that we have to find what number is in the tens place. Well, we see that 4 is in the tens place, okay? And then we go to the number behind it to tell me if I'm going to be going up or down. But let's talk about this real quick. The 10 above 249 is going to be 250, and the 10 below is going to be 240. All right, so if that's the case, then this guy would round to the closer one. Is it closer to 250 or is it closer to 240? Well, this place is closer to 250. And the way we could have also done that is say that 9 rounds up. So it would push this 240 up to 250. Cool. Very last one I'm looking at is 1,353. And so with the 1,353, we would look at what number is in my tens place. And that's a 5. So the 10 above that would be a 6. So it would be 1,360. And the 10 below that would be 1,350. Not 40, but 50, because that is that's the number below with a 0 at the end, a 0 in the ones place. Here we have 0 in the ones place, 60, 0 in the ones place, 50. And we'd say that 53 gets me closer to this one here, okay? That 3 is only 3 away from here, but 7 away from up here. All right. It looks kind of like I kind of went 9, 3, 1, 9, 3. That was kind of like a pattern I wasn't looking for. But anyway, cool. Next we have hundreds. Let's just go through this quickly. So if I'm rounding to the number in the nearest hundred, I still go to the hundreds place stuff. I mean, this time I'm going to the hundreds. And I'm like, hey, what are the hundreds around 781? Well, I have the 100 that's above, which is 800. And I have the 100 that's below 781, which is 700. Okay? And 81 is going to get me closer to 800. Sorry, 81 is going to push me higher, or 781 is closer to 800 than it is to 700. Okay? Because this one's 81 away from this, but it's only 19 away from this guy. Another way I can do this is I say, hey, what's the number in my hundreds place? Well, that's my 7. And I look at the number behind it, it's an 8. And 8 is more than 5, so it's going to push up to give me this guy of 800. 249, very similar. The higher one here is going to be 300. The lower one is going to be 200. The way I do this is I check to round to the nearest 100. I look at the number behind, which is a 4. And remember, if it's 5 or more, you let it soar, but it's 4 or less, you let it rest. And 249 is closer to 200. This one I have over here, 69. 69 doesn't even have a hundreds place. But I ask myself, is it closer to the 100 that's above 69, which would be 100, or is it closer to the 100 that's below, which is no 100, which is basically 0? Well, in this case, 69 is closer to 100. Another way I could do that is I look at the number behind the hundreds place. I see it's a 6, and 6 is greater than 5, so it would raise this up to the 100 category. Over here, I've got 8,951, and with 8,951, I look in the hundreds place, I got myself a 9, and the number behind that is a 5, which means it's going to push it up, and it's going to let it soar. And so the next 100 up from 900 is 1,000. So, or you could call it 1,000, but please don't do that. Let's just call it 1,000. So that means that the 1,000 higher than 8,951 is going to give us to, or the 100 higher, I should say, is going to get us to 9,000. Oh, yes. Very nice. Okay, and let's just finish this out. If I'm running to the nearest 1,000, then let's just go ahead and do this. Basically, I do the very exact same thing. I'm like, hey, what's my number in the thousands place? In this case, it's a 5. And so now that I've got my 5, I'm going to go ahead and say, hey, what's the number behind it? In this case, it's a 4. And because it's a 4 or less, I let it rest. And so it goes down. And so I could say, hey, what are my numbers around that? Well, the higher 1,000 would be 6,000. The lower 1,000 would be 5,000. The 4 tells me I'm going to the lower 1,000, so I'm at 5,000. I know I'm talking fast, but I'm kind of, you might already know this stuff. So anyway, next I've got 28,712. Whoa. So with 28,712, again, I'm rounding to the nearest 1,000, so I find my number in the 1,000 place. Here, I'm at 8. And so the number behind it, which is my 7, is going to tell me if I'm going to go up or down. Now the higher 1,000 is 29,000. The lower 1,000 is 28,000. Notice how everything just reverts to zeros here. Okay, cool. So we look at the number behind the thousands place. In this case, it's a 7, and 7 tells me up. And because it's telling me up, then it's pushing me up to 29,000. Okay, all right, cool. Now, the very last thing to keep in mind is what if you are estimating because you are going to be adding stuff together, all right? Let's say that you are at the supermarket or something like that and you're adding things together. So let's say you're buying a $341 iPad at, I don't know, someplace. And then a $673 pair of gold dipped Jordans, and so you want to get those two together. All right, so I want to buy these two, but I'm just going to do like a rough estimate in my head about how much that's going to cost. Well, let's say I can do two things. I can either round to the nearest tens, or I can round to the nearest hundreds. Now, the lower value you round to, the little more accurate it's going to be. So we can do both. Let's round to the hundreds and see what we get, and then we'll round to the tens and we'll see what we get. So in this case, let's say first we run around to the hundreds. So 341 rounding to the nearest 100. So here's my 100. I'd round, I need to check the tens place to tell me what's going to happen over here. And 4 means go down, so this is going to be approximately 300. Now over here I've got 673, and that's going to round. The 6 is in my hundreds place, 7 is in my tens place. 7 is going to tell me up or down, and it's going to tell me up, so this is going to round to the higher hundred, which is 700, approximately. I could add these together, and I end up with nothing, 10. And that's going to give me 1,000. So I have approximately $1,000 for this purchase of my iPad that I'm buying at Kmart or something like that, and my gold dip Jordans that I'm getting out of a white van. So yeah. Now what if I round it to the nearest 10? Let's compare how accurate that's going to be. Now this one came to 1,000. Let's go ahead and compare one other thing. Let's round to the nearest tens. Let's see. In this case, we have our tens place. Here is a 4. All right, and so we look at the number behind, and it's a 1, so it's going to round down to the nearest 10, which would be 340. All right, so 340. In this case here, tens place is 7. 3 is going to round down, so it's going to get down to 670. All right? Going ahead and adding these together, nothing, get 11, and again I get 10. So this time at about 1,010. All right, and so that's my approximate answer again. Let's see what my actuals were. I didn't even have decimals. I tried to make this simple. All right, let's what the actual answer was. All right, 1 plus 3, given me 4. I get 11. All right, get a 9, get a 10. All right, so 1,014 doll hairs. All right, so this is pretty close. The 1,000 was close too, but notice that when we rounded to the nearest 100, I was only 14 off. Now that's not always going to be the case, but it's a pretty good, we get some pretty good estimations and stuff like that. So anyway, these are basically what you are doing in class and for homework, and that's me almost falling down because I am a classy figure. Anyway, so stay classy, and I'll see you guys on Tuesday. I miss you guys, and it'll be fun seeing you guys back in class, and we'll have some good unicorn time and some good unicorn math. And thanks for checking me out. And yeah, that's about it. Peace. All right, bye.